Welcome back, welcome back. We're here still with Peter and Stryker. It isn't quite clear, I suppose, yet finally who literally won this election. It's pretty clear who lost because the Labour Party suffered and their leader Gordon Brown. After 13 years in office, the party lost almost 100 seats yesterday. So how will the party move forward? I'm joined now again by the former General Secretary of the Labour Party, Peter Watt, and by Stryker from Newsweek, both of you. Peter, first of all, what do you think Gordon Brown is thinking now? Is he kicking himself that he could have done something to save himself?
I don't think he's kicking himself. I think it's interesting. The election, there is no clear winner. There's an obvious loser, but there's no clear winner, and I think that's interesting in itself. David Cameron 4 or 5 months ago was 20-odd points ahead in the polls. Nick Clegg was, riding high 2.5 weeks ago. There's something bad in this for everyone. No one's actually done very well in this election. Is the first thing. I think the second thing is that what's going to happen increasingly over the coming days and weeks is that people are going to be looking within the Labour Party, are going to be looking and kicking themselves and saying, well, what would have happened if 6 months ago or 12 months ago had we taken the opportunities that arose to actually to change leader at that point? Would this election have looked differently? And I think you've got to say it probably would have done, because David Cameron clearly, in the eyes of the electorate, hadn't signed the deal. I mean, despite all the things that the Labour Party had done to try and help David Cameron to win the election, and all the things it had done to sort of help him up, he still couldn't get a clear majority. And I think people will begin to ask that question themselves. Why is it that when the rest of the country knew that Gordon Brown wasn't a great Prime Minister, that we couldn't see this ourselves?
Could a Tony Blair figure have won this election?
I think there were other people in the Labour Party who could have potentially taken over, and I think he would have probably done a better job.
Who was that?
I think Alan Johnson would have been somebody. I think Dave Miliband would have been another.
Both could have done better.
I think either or of them could have been, yeah.
And what do you think that Gordon Brown will do next?
I hope what Gordon does is take some time off, the classic time off, and think about what he wants to do with the rest of his life. I mean, he's still a relatively young man, and he's got he's a huge intellect. He's got his Labour, his Labour through and through. I don't think his time as Prime Minister has been particularly successful or fantastic, and I don't think history will judge it like that. But he's got a huge amount to offer, and I hope he finds something that he enjoys again. I don't think he enjoyed being Prime Minister.
What about? I think that's very possibly true. Looking among other things very simplistically at the photographs and so on. Indeed, but you mentioned Alan Johnson, David Miliband, and so on. What will they do now? Will they, from tomorrow morning, will their whole focus be on succeeding Gordon Brown? Must be, I suppose. I think
their focus has been on succeeding Gordon Brown for some time now, and those discussions have been taking place for weeks and months. And in some cases longer than that. So I think that while there'll be quite rightly, there'll be no overt plotting at the moment. It will be very covert. And I say that's quite right, because actually I think Gordon Brown's handled himself. He had a very bad deck of cards played today, and he's handled them very, very well, because he's looked and sounded like a statesman. Somebody has to be in charge, and Gordon said, well, OK, if someone's got to be in charge for the next couple of days, then let it be me until we get through the other side of this. But behind the scenes, people will be talking and plotting and planning.
And Stryker, I mean, as you look closely at this situation, as you've looked at other political situations and so on, how unique and different is the gavotte that's going on here with the way it would be in America or Australia?
Well, people do ask me that, and yet, we've had some amazing elections in the United States. You go back just 10 years to the hanging chads of Florida. It took weeks to determine who had won that election. I think anybody looking at what's going on here needs to be quite careful about coming to very, very quick judgments. I was talking to one of the Commonwealth observers who's in the country watching the election, and he said, I come from a country where there is proportional voting. He said, I'm not so sure that that's the best system. He said, don't be careful before, in this country, you change the rules too quickly.
Be careful before you change the rules too quickly.
Exactly.
Good advice?
I think very good advice. And having said that, I think that, so I slightly disagree with something Malcolm said about Nick Clegg. I think that there is a possibility of a realignment of progressive sort of soft left of centre politics in this country, and that would flow from potentially changing the voting system, and that's why Nick Clegg will push for it so hard, and that's why David Cameron will resist it, because if you look what happened in this election, there was a 52% vote for a joint Labour. Liberal to left of centre ticket.
Well, yes. What you're saying is that system, proportional representation, is really curtains for anyone who brings it in, because they'll never get rid of it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think David Cameron will fear it, because I think he would fear that a right of centre dominated government will become very difficult to form in this country if we have proportional representation.
The system now has served the Conservative Party extremely well, which is why it's the natural party of government. It's, you know, if you go back over 100 years or so, how many years have the Conservatives been in power versus the others?
More.
Exactly.
More,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting situation.
For sure.
Yes. Quickly, as we conclude, who's the next Prime Minister, or indeed, let's say, leader of the Labour Party?
I would say it's going to be one of the Miliband brothers.
Would you agree?
I would agree, yes. I would say David Miliband.
2 votes for the Miliband brothers there. And now, for a complete change of tempo, to wrap up this week, Joan Armatrading. Joan Armatrading is one of the most famous, as you will know, and successful musicians ever. She's currently in the middle of a world tour, in this her 38th year in the music business, and she's just released a new album called This Charming Life. Before we hear the interview that I did with Joan when I met her a bit earlier, let's see her perform that track, the title track, from that very album.
Every government must pass down a law that says the sun has to always shine. That everybody gets the chance to say, I live in love with you, this charming life. I live in love with you, this charming life.
Joan Armatrading there, at her very best. Welcome, Joan. Good to have you with us. How long ago did you write that?
Oh, well, it was written last year, and it came out this year. I spent actually all of 2009 writing this whole album. So I wrote and recorded at the same time, and I kind of engineered everything, and I'm playing everything apart from drums. So
everything except the drums.
Everything except the drums. So whatever you hear on the CD, it's me. Whether it's vocals or instruments. So yeah, I spent 2009 writing and recording, and then of course mixing and getting the thing out, and then it came out I think about the 8th of March or something like that in Europe.
Yeah. And of course you have written other music for Nelson Mandela in your time, haven't you? Back earlier on,
yes.
When he'd just been released from prison.
No, it wasn't when he was just released, but it was, I can't believe I don't remember the date properly, but it was some 2000 and something, and but he was at a private function, and I'd been asked earlier to write a tribute song to him, which I did, called The Messenger. It wasn't released as a single or anything, and if people want to hear that song, they can go to my website and hear it. But I was asked to perform that song for him when he was at this function, which I did, and then he danced the whole song. Because I remember seeing him on, I think it was your program.
Yes.
And he was doing a lot of dancing then.
He was, absolutely.
That's right. And so he danced the whole song, and then at the end gave me this big hug. And I've been very fortunate. I've met him a few times, so he's a very special chap, as we all know.
Is he probably the most special person you've ever met?
What, like apart from my mother?
Apart from your mother, yeah.
Well, I think, you know, I remember once I was in Australia, and I ordered some food, and the girl brought the food up, and she said, "Who's it for?" And I said, "Nobody special." And she said, "We're all special." And that's really what I think. I think that Mr. Mandela is a very special person, but there are lots of people, I think, who are special people. The specialness of him is, yes, unique to him, but there are other people who have done some quite remarkable things as well. So
I couldn't agree more with that. In fact, my father always quoted a Turkish proverb which used to say, even a stopped clock is right twice a day.
there you go.
Yeah, you know, which was absolutely that message.
Yes.
You know, absolutely.
Yes.
Now, do you still have the same fulfillment from writing songs and performing songs, or is it different, the fulfillment?
Well, I have to write, so I would say it's the same. I feel just as excited writing a song today as I did when I started. I started writing probably when I was 13, 14. And I feel just as excited when I'm in the process of writing, when I finished it, and when I hear the comments that people make about the song once it's out there. I'm very, very interested to hear what people are going to say about the songs, and I'm very interested that people would want to become attached to the songs, because that's really what it's about. It's about writing something, put it out there, and people say, I want to use that to get married to, or I want to use that to propose to. Even just recently when I was in Germany, the interviewer said to me that he was using my songs to try and win back his girlfriend.
Was he succeeding?
Well, I asked him that question and he said he'd let me know, but
Oh, that's a great story. Well, you're going to continue. You'll carry on till you drop, touring the world, country after country, song after song.
Definitely song after song. I'm not sure about the touring, but definitely writing and making songs and hopefully having people want to own the songs and listen to them for as long as they can.
Well, come back and see us again soon. In the meantime, we'll go to that song we heard earlier on, a touch more of that very memorable song, This Charming Life, and here it is.
Every government must pass down a law that says the sun has to always shine. That everybody gets the chance to say, I live in love with you, this charming life. I live in love with you, this charming life.
Joan Armatrading there. Join us again in 7 days when the British Prime Minister will be... We'll tell you then.